Hey there, I'm Hallie Jackson, and you've been listening to it there. In just the last half an hour, we've learned at least one American is among the 10 more hostages being released from Gaza tonight, according to a Qatari official. The question is, as you have been hearing from Richard Engel, from Kelly O'Donnell, from others, is that going to be the final prisoner exchange as this truce extension is officially ending even as we speak? The question is, could there be a last-minute scramble to extend this ceasefire even longer? Let's get to Monica Alba at the White House and David Noriega in the region in Tel Aviv. So, David, it appears that things are moving quickly, and this is in some ways part of the pattern that we have seen over the course of the last 6 days that this truce has been in place, that sometimes at the 11th hour things happen. We are seeing things happen tonight, specifically with the release of this American hostage and these questions over whether or not officials are going to be able to get to some kind of a deal in the next, who knows, hour, couple of hours before the sun comes up where you are.
Yeah, Hallie, it's true that things move very fast and you can't reach any conclusions about what's happening until you literally see it happen. But just standing here now and taking stock a little bit of what's happened over the last 5-6 days, I do want to point out that even though there have been moments of tension and uncertainty and eerie quiet, as we felt earlier this evening, nevertheless, things have always managed to fall back on track. That's what we're seeing again tonight with this release of an additional 10 Israeli hostages, 4 Thai nationals. That's in addition to the 2 dual Russian-Israeli nationals that were released earlier in the evening, also outside of the framework of the agreement. We can't reach any conclusions, prematurely about anything, but we do know that there are efforts being made in Doha, including with the CIA director, the director of the Mossad, other political and diplomatic actors who are trying their best to extend the ceasefire. And we've heard from both of the parties involved, from Israel and Hamas, that they are willing to extend the ceasefire as long as the other party is willing to meet their terms. So, again, we can't reach any conclusions, but I can say that efforts are being made, and we will certainly be looking in the next couple of hours for some kind of news on that front. Hallie.
We've been looking, by the way, to the left side of our screen here, David, just so viewers know, at a live shot at the West Bank tonight. Again, it is just past midnight now where you are in the region. David, stand by. Monica, I want to go to you now because you have been the tip of the spear in our reporting on the U.S. Biden administration push to try to get not just this American hostage out, but another woman as well. Talk us through where things stand, where things go.
Yes, Hallie, and we can now report this very welcome news that this dual Israeli-American citizen, Liat Benin Atzili, is among that group of hostages that was handed over to the Red Cross just recently, really in the last hour or so. We know she is a dedicated civics and history teacher. She is someone who has worked at Yad Vashem, which is Israel's official memorial to victims of the Holocaust, and we know that her family members have been continually, of course, in touch with the Biden administration, pushing for her release, for any details that they could get on her condition. And we also know that she is somebody who was kidnapped along with other family members who we still believe are being held hostage by Hamas or other groups in Gaza. So there is an incredible sense of relief, of course, from her family that she has now been transferred over the border. We understand now she will go through these rigorous, of course, and much needed medical checks after what she has endured, these more than 54 days in captivity. You can expect that to, of course, take as long as it needs to take. And then, yes, this raises the question about what might happen with this other American woman who we believe to be in the same kind of category, somebody who could be released the way we just saw Liat released, but that we don't know necessarily if she was being held in the same place or by the same group. So I am told by a U.S. official there is a sincere hope that the extension will expand, that we could see another 2-day extension the way we did on Monday, about 48 hours or so ago. So even though technically right now the temporary truce is lapsing in that very technical sense, I'm told by, again, the Biden administration that they believe they will still be able to extend this and be able to continue to work on the release of more hostages. But there is now this big task ahead of them, which is potentially locating, again, where some of these other citizens are, and now very difficult negotiations that need to take place about potential future groups that wouldn't just be women and children, moving on to a new phase, perhaps, of men or of military women who have those kinds of affiliations who are being held. But the president, who is traveling right now back from Colorado, I can imagine will want to speak to this. He did when Abigail Adan, that 4-year-old, was released on Sunday. And I imagine, of course, he will express that relief we are all sensing and feeling that the family must just be experiencing tenfold or more. Hallie.
And I want to just let people know here that we have teams covering this from every angle. There is obviously a team of reporters with the so-called pool, Monica traveling with the president. We are watching all of those live shots. We're going to bring that to you if, in fact, President Biden does decide to speak. You're going to see it right here on NBC News Now. David, one of the things that Monica touched on is we've seen some of this video now, including just a couple of hours ago of 2 Israeli women in video released by Hamas being loaded into Red Cross vans, essentially. This is a scene that we have seen play out now over the course of the last 6 days, being returned home now to Israel after being kidnapped back on October 7th by Hamas terrorists. There's also this question of this potential 2-day extension. Mon phrased it as a potential hope from obviously American officials. That is the way that a senior Arab diplomat directly involved in negotiations is characterizing it to us as well. A glimmer of hope that there could be a 48-hour extension. Do we know anything more on that at this hour? Because while this truce deal has officially lapsed, it doesn't seem like we've seen a restart of the fighting here. David, talk us through it.
That's right. We have not seen a renewal of the fighting. One thing I've learned from observing this ceasefire play out over the last few days is that we cannot treat the rules as hard and fast, right? On more than one occasion now, both Hamas and Israel have mutually accused each other, for example, of actually violating the terms of the ceasefire with attacks, right? Shooting explosives and the like, and yet the ceasefire held. It's, you know, at this point, 7 minutes or so past midnight when the ceasefire was technically due to expire, and yet, from what we know, the ceasefire is holding as these diplomatic efforts continue. We need to treat these things loosely. I can also tell you that, you know, the kinds of domestic political pressures that the Netanyahu government is facing, particularly from the families of hostages, especially those families that have had one family member released but another family member stay behind, means that the Israeli government is in a position right now where it would be, I think, very difficult for it to resume this war. Even though it's facing pressure from the hard right to do so, it's facing, I think, substantially more pressure from the Israeli public and, again, from these families, not to mention the United States, Qatar, and these other diplomatic actors to hold off. So, again, we won't know until we know. We are waiting for news on that front. But as of now, things are quiet. And as long as they stay quiet, I think we can expect the ceasefire to I shouldn't say that we should expect the ceasefire to continue. Again, we really don't know.
I know.
But based on what we've seen so far, based on the extent of the pressure that's being put on the government to do so, you know, we have to wait and see. A lot of people are working really hard to extend the ceasefire. Let's just leave it at that. Hallie.
Those people include, of course, the United States Secretary of State, Monica and David, as you both well know, who is headed to the region, set to arrive there really potentially any minute. We know that the head of the CIA has been in Qatar talking with his Israeli counterpart there. The negotiations have been happening now for days, very intensively. And David, to speak about what we do know, right, we do know that the Israeli prime minister has said that fighting will resume, that they will resume the intense fighting that we have seen in Gaza once the hostage release, the hostage exchange has been completed here. And that is the central question. Are the hostages that we've just seen, including this American woman, is this the final round of people who will be freed under the terms of this current agreement, or will there be more? It feels like at this moment, I don't want to say 5:10 Eastern, 10 minutes past midnight where you are, David, that is what's happening right now.
I think one of the factors that makes this situation particularly difficult to read in this moment is that, yes, you are right. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said, he's made a point of saying repeatedly over and over again that this truce will be temporary, that the war will resume, that the war will not end until Israel has achieved its goal of eliminating Hamas, even though that is a difficult to define goal, right? At the same time, the other priority, the other military priority, as he stated, is the release of all of the hostages. But there are a lot of hostages, even though we've seen a lot of them released in the last, 6 days, particularly the most vulnerable. There are still a number of hostages, including civilian hostages, including vulnerable civilian hostages, such as elderly men who are still inside Gaza. That means that the ceasefire, if it proceeds the way that it has over the last few days, could be prolonged for a long time, especially once you start getting to those hostages who are military personnel. At that point, Hamas is likely to start asking for a higher price in terms of the number of Palestinian prisoners released, not just the number, but also the severity of the crimes for which they were convicted. And this is only going to get more complicated. The negotiations are only going to get more complicated as we move forward, which is going to keep putting the Netanyahu government in an increasingly constrained position within which it has to decide at what point has this dragged on too long? At what point is the cost that the government is being forced to pay by the right and by some sectors of the Israeli public who want the war to resume greater than the cost that is being exacted by the families of the hostages, the U.S., and the other diplomatic actors who are trying to get them to extend the ceasefire? It's a tricky calculation for anybody to make, and that's why I think we can't make any predictions about how long this will last, whether it's going to end tonight or in 2 days or 3 days or 4 days or a week. It is, nobody has a crystal ball here. It's very difficult to read, just strategically an extraordinarily difficult situation to predict, really. Hallie.
One of the things, Monica, that we know has been happening, and you spoke to this a moment ago, pull on this thread for us, is how involved personally President Biden has been in these discussions. I believe that in his remarks just a couple of moments ago, he talked about having discussions with his national security advisor, even on Air Force One, on his way to Colorado, where he is now. And we're getting word now from the reporters traveling with the president that he is returning now, getting ready, of course, to get on the plane. Talk us through that piece of it.
Absolutely, Hallie. He has been, in his own words, deeply engaged with every step of this process. Essentially, since the U.S. learned that there were American citizens unaccounted for and likely believed to be held hostage in those days after the October 7th massacre, there has been essentially round-the-clock work to try to be a part of the negotiations to eventually secure their release. And we know, even it's a few weeks ago, it feels like a lifetime ago with all of the news that has happened since. But remember that some of the first hostages that were released were 2 Americans, a mother and daughter who live in Illinois, who were, we understand, because of the U.S. involvement, more easily able to be freed in an earlier portion before there was any kind of an agreement like the one we are seeing now, because, again, of how the U.S. says they were trying to get involved in the talks to make sure that they could be freed and released. And so the U.S. in some ways likes to say that the things that they were able to learn from securing their release, they've now been able to apply to these subsequent releases. And so in the case of the 4-year-old Abigail Adan, they had a little bit more visibility, we understand, into where she was being held, who was holding her, and what the mechanics would be for freeing her. And that is likely why she was the first American under this current truce agreement to be released. I'm going to stop you here
because here's the president.
Benin is safe in Egypt. She's crossed the border. I talked with her mother and father. They're very appreciative, and things are moving well. She'll soon be home with her 3 children. That's all I have to say for right now.
Can you give us a sense of other Americans who might be being released, Mr. President?
Thanks, everyone. And that short remarks there from President Biden as he is walking up, speaking live. You watched it there. He's in Colorado. He is now ascending the steps of Air Force One after a speech there earlier today, confirming the news now from President Biden that we had reported here at NBC News. The release of an American hostage. He says she is now safely in Egypt. The president clearly relieved, but also noting there is still more work to be done. There are still more people to be freed. And Monica, this is something that you alluded to. You suggested may happen, that the president may, in fact, want to make a couple of brief remarks about this. And that is what we're seeing play out now here live.
And I thought it was notable, Hallie, that he mentioned that he spoke to some family members of this woman, Liat Benin Asili. It's something we saw also on Sunday with Abigail Idan's family. This is something, again, where the president, I'm told by those close to him, has wanted updates at every possible interval. He's wanted to know what the latest is. And so, yes, even on a day like today, where he's traveling on a totally unrelated manner, he is wanting to have those close to him let him know what the latest is so that he can continue to be in touch with the families. And we also know that throughout this process, family members of some other Americans who are unaccounted for and who we believe are being held by Hamas or other groups in Gaza have been in constant touch with people like National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and some other key Biden administration officials, some in the State Department, to also keep getting those regular updates. And when we know that the president and his top aides initially spoke with those family members, it was about 10 or so of those unaccounted for Americans and their family members on a Zoom call a few weeks back. We were told by people in the room it was one of the most gut-wrenching conversations they had ever witnessed in their time at the White House. Just to give you a sense of the anguish, the agony, and the pain that so many of those families are still experiencing if they don't know where their loved ones are, but that at least some are now seeing the beginning of a little bit of relief if theirs are coming home. Hallie.
There is so much on that spectrum of hope on the one hand and despair on the other, Monica. And David, to that point, as we talk about the potential for optimism here, that maybe more hostages can be released, we are also now hearing claims from Hamas that the youngest hostage, a 10-month-old baby boy, along with his brother and mother, his brother just 4 years old, have been killed in an Israeli strike. The Israeli military looking into that. We have to note that NBC News cannot independently confirm that claim. But this is a moment. We were actually showing one of the pictures just a second ago on those kidnapped posters. A little boy with bright red hair, two of these little boys, so many around the world wanting to know how they're doing, what has happened to them, and where this goes.
Yeah, Hallie, here's what we know and what we don't know. Hamas issued a statement earlier today claiming that that family, that mother and her two children, her infant and her small child, had been killed as the result of an Israeli airstrike. However, they did not provide any evidence to back up that claim. They didn't provide any details as to when, where, or how exactly that happened. The IDF says that it's looking into it. The IDF has been in communication with the Bibas family. The Bibas family has said that it is aware of this claim and that it is it's laying low, staying private, and waiting to get either confirmation or what they hope is refutation of that information. Here in Israel, among the general public, there have been a few points at which different people involved in this ordeal, different hostages, have become symbolic of what's at stake and of the different crossroads that Israeli society finds itself in throughout this process. At this point, that is the Bibas family, and a lot of people are waiting to hear the final word on that. Hallie.
David Noriega, live for us in Tel Aviv. Monica Alba, live for us here in Washington. Thank you both. I'm going to ask you both to stay close to your cameras. It is obviously an evening of fast-moving developments. We expect potentially more at any second. We appreciate you being with us. If you pull out for a second, there is still bigger picture, more concern now, new concern about tensions, not just on the Gaza Strip, not just with Israel, but in the region more broadly. Because in just the last hour, we are learning that a U.S. Navy ship has shot down an unmanned drone launched from Yemen in one of the areas controlled by Houthi rebels. This is coming as the U.S. military is putting out new warnings against Iran, saying an Iranian drone made what they call unsafe actions near a U.S. aircraft in the region. I want to bring in Courtney Cuby, who's posted up at the Pentagon for us. You just heard, Courtney, over the course of the last 25 minutes or so, a number of the developments happening as it relates to Israel, as it relates to Hamas in that area. But this is a region that is essentially on the edge of a tinderbox here. Talk us through how some of these new developments could change the dynamics.
Yeah, so the Houthis, it's a Iranian-backed rebel group in Yemen. They are trained, they're funded, they're equipped by Iran and have been for years. So we had not seen we hadn't seen a number of attacks like we have recently from the Houthis in years, frankly. In fact, there had been this holding ceasefire between the Saudis and the Houthis that had really kept their activity in the region down in recent months, and even, frankly, the last several years, until October 17th. Since then, we have seen a real escalation in what the Houthis have done, including some of the capabilities that they have shown, including close-range ballistic missiles that they have been firing from Yemen towards Israel. Drone swarms. We've seen a number of times where they have sent up multiple drones, and in some cases, as you just mentioned, U.S. military ships have even had to shoot them down or intercept them when they've come a little bit too close to U.S. Navy ships that are operating in the region. And what's really notable here, Hallie, is that even so, since this pause began late last week in the fighting in Gaza, some of these militia groups that have been backed by Iran have stopped their attacks. So the attacks that we were seeing in Iraq and Syria, there's been a pause in those as well, for the most part, since last Friday. The Houthis have continued their activities, everything from their continuing efforts in the maritime environment with drones, attempting to go after ships, commercial ships in the area, and firing missiles, including a ballistic missile only several days ago. So we've really seen the Houthis step up their activities, while some of these other militia groups, frankly, have taken a step back over the last several days.
We have seen work happening at the highest level, obviously, Courtney, as it relates to the region, not just at the beat that you cover, the Pentagon, but, of course, on the diplomatic front as well. And I want to let people know, because we talked about it a second ago, the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, has now just landed in Tel Aviv. We had known he was heading to the region, going back there. He was there for days early on when this war first started. This is a live picture now. You are seeing this, as we are seeing this, of the Secretary's plane there in Tel Aviv. He is now joining and has been a part of that diplomatic effort to try to get some of these hostages released, Court. And this is happening, right? It is quite literally a split screen to what you have been reporting on related to your beat here, which is the possibility that, as you've laid out here, the possibility that one small escalation could set off a domino effect.
Right. So imagine if one of these Houthi attacks was successful and they were able to hit one of those U.S. military ships with a ballistic missile over the weekend. One of these drones is able to crash onto a U.S. Navy ship. One of these attacks in Iraq and Syria is successful. Or, frankly, as we saw earlier today, again, we saw another incident with an Iranian drone, this time in the Persian Gulf, flying a little bit too close to the USS Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group. They've been in the Gulf for the past several days. If there is one of these incidents that just escalates a little bit and there's a successful attack, we could see a real change in the tensions and the fighting in Gaza really escalating around the region. That's the real reason that that U.S. military officials are so concerned about the situation there and continuing to send military there as an effort to deter further actions.
Courtney Cuby live for us at the Pentagon. As you see now, some of the folks who are traveling with Secretary Blinken start to walk off his plane in Tel Aviv as he has now landed in Israel. We're going to keep an eye on this. We're going to see if there's any news. As you see, the Secretary wave. He's going to begin to walk down the stairs. Again, this is a live shot now. You can see it is 23 minutes past midnight in the region. 23 minutes technically past the end of what ultimately was a 6-day truce. The question is now, can Secretary Blinken, can others work to try to get, along with obviously the Qataris, along with Israel, along with the negotiators involved here, that truce extended even longer, perhaps another 48 hours? We may know at some point in the next, who knows, couple of minutes, couple of hours, couple of days. We're going to keep you posted on that story with, again, an evening of fast-moving developments. There are also a lot of developments here at home on a very different front, and that is winter weather creating a dangerous mess in some parts of the country, particularly in the Northeast, where some people are getting 3.5 feet of snow. Car crashes being reported, all of it part of the first big lake effect snow of the season. What does that mean when we talk about lake effect snow? It basically means that really cold water from the Great Lakes is blown up by wind gusts, and then it falls back down as snow. That is snow that is still falling as we speak. The National Weather Service, in fact, says that in places like upstate New York, it is hard to even see through all of that snow coming down. We're talking 1 to 2 inches each hour, even into tonight. And if you felt like today was super cold for this time of year, you are correct. It's the coldest it's been so far this season for a lot of spots in the East Coast. Even for our friends down south in Florida, where it is so chilly that even some of these manatees are snuggling up to a power plant where they're enjoying some of that warmer water there on the coldest day in Florida since last January. Let me bring in Jesse Kirsch, who's live in Ohio for us tonight. And it is obviously the start of winter, but this is potentially very dangerous, and we've already seen the impacts of that, Jess.
Yeah, and Hallie, it's not just the lake effect snow you were just talking about. That's in the Great Lakes region, like where I am right now in Ohio. You can breathe a sigh of relief
if you're in the area and we're dreading the snow, because you can see it's largely cleared up out here. The lake effect snow warning warnings went and expired earlier today. But there's also just been these below average temperatures up and down the East Coast you talked about in Florida, stretching up into the Northeast. And according to police in Philadelphia, that it appears that one driver went across an ice patch and then died as a result of that traffic incident. So it just speaks to the treacherous conditions you can have on roads. You can see it behind me here, and just looking out on the roadways here in the Cleveland, Ohio suburbs. Things are moving pretty smoothly now, but we've seen slush and ice throughout the day, and still the aftermath of the snow on the ground. And it's cold out, so you definitely still need to be bundling up. But this isn't something that everyone dreads. Here's some of what we heard from folks in the western Pennsylvania area earlier today.
This storm is around, it's average. We're excited to have the national news here, but it's not that big of a deal for us. It's a good snowstorm, especially at this time of year, but, this is par for the course for us.
Yeah, so this is what a lot of people are used to in these parts of the country, but it's a reminder that winter is upon us. And something, if you want to take the glass half full approach, Hallie, is that means that you're more likely to be able to go skiing if you like that kind of thing.
We love the optimism, Jesse. Appreciate that, even through your chattering teeth. Thank you. Officials today are proposing some new changes now, and this is a very big deal, to the rules around safety regulations for baby loungers after multiple babies suffocated and died while in them. This is a story that we have covered repeatedly here at this network and on this show. We're talking about, you see them here, these kinds of padded little beds, sort of, that you can lie a baby down on. They're not actually beds. They're dangerous because things like this can happen. This is a picture a parent sent to the agency that decides on safety standards of the products you buy, using a doll to show how they found their 3-month-old hanging off the lounger after her baby kicked her legs and pushed herself upward. In this instance, fortunately, that baby was okay, but it is not always the case. Our investigation this year found at least 25 babies died while in these loungers since 2015. That is significantly more deaths than officials had previously announced. Ann Thompson is joining us now. And Ann, this has been a conversation that has been happening now for months. We're talking recalls. We're talking about congressional pressure. Now this new move. So where does it put us in terms of trying to get a handle on this issue, of trying to come to a longer-term solution?
Well, what the CPSC has proposed, Hallie, are the first ever regulations of these infant loungers and support pillows. The problem is they're just too pillowy, if you will, and they're not meant for children to sleep on, infants to sleep on, but that's what happens. So what the CPSC wants to do, what it's proposing, is to make these loungers flatter, thinner, and firmer, and to make them as firm as a crib mattress, so the baby just lies there, and when it rolls over, it doesn't risk suffocating itself. But this is a long way off, and today Commissioner Richard Trumka walked me through it.
It's not going to be that these products are on store shelves as safe as we'd like to see them tomorrow. We put forward a proposed rule today. We're going to put forward a final rule before the end of next September.
So we are looking at perhaps 18 months before this rule is even finalized, and then the manufacturers have to get on board. So in the meantime, it's really important that the parents follow the instructions and read them. Don't assume they're safe for sleeping. Read the manufacturer's instructions. And most of them say the child must be awake and the child must be supervised when they are on this product. You said
a word that's important there, Ann. You said manufacturers, plural. And the reason why that matters, we're not talking about just one product from one single company. This is essentially a class of products, right? There's several companies that make this kind of thing. What are we hearing from them about this potential rule change?
You know, what's interesting, Hallie, they just this afternoon came out with a statement, and they said that they are willing to work with the CPSC on any kind of regulation. But again, they stressed that they want these products to be safe and and they said that parents need to follow those instructions that are on there. The problem is that it looks so comfy. It looks comfy to an adult, but an adult isn't an infant, and an infant needs to have that hard surface so it doesn't roll over and suffocate, and that's what has to happen. You see this warning label. It was interesting. I asked Commissioner Trumka what he thinks of warning labels. He's not very impressed. He said, look, people read them. Sometimes they don't. What has to happen is these products need to be redesigned, because the way they are now, they are just too dangerous for the youngest among us.
Ann Thompson, thank you so much for that. We're going to look for more of your reporting and our team's reporting tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, 6:30 Eastern, wherever you watch your local NBC station. Some startling new details tonight about a would-be assassination plot allegedly linked to the Indian government and a Sikh activist living here in the U.S., in New York, with a history of criticizing the Indian government. The DOJ is announcing the arrest of a suspect who officials say was recruited by an Indian government employee to help carry out this whole assassination scheme. The plan? Find a hitman. The problem? The person they hired was an undercover DEA agent. Officials are not identifying the target, but they say he's upset India's leaders by calling for an independent Sikh state. And if this whole thing sounds familiar, that's because back in June, a different Sikh activist, the man you're seeing here, was shot and killed outside a temple in Canada. Investigators are still looking for the men responsible for that killing, but Canadian officials say that hit was ordered by high-ranking officials in the Indian government. That's something the Indians deny. NBC's Ken Delaney is following this story for us. It is dramatic, Ken. It feels like something out of a Hollywood script here. Talk us through what we know.
Yeah, it's remarkable, Hallie. Essentially, the U.S. government here all but pointing the finger at the Indian government, saying that this plot was orchestrated by an Indian government employee in India who described himself as essentially a senior intelligence operative. And the indictment all but says that this plot is linked to the one in Canada. And I learned from a senior U.S. official that President Biden discussed this matter with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the G20 summit in September. The U.S. government taking this very seriously, because if true, it suggests that the Indian government is crossing a very serious line here and going after its political opponents via assassination in friendly countries, in the United States and Canada. This is something that, until now, only the Russians or other kinds of rogue governments have done. Now, again, the Indian government denies that they're behind this, and the indictment doesn't expressly accuse the government, but it's a remarkable situation. And obviously, the plot in Canada succeeded. A Sikh activist was shot and killed. The one in New York was foiled by an undercover operative. What's interesting is I checked with CIA and experts in the region, and they say there really is no credible threat of Sikh terrorism to India. These separatists are calling for a separate Sikh enclave in India, but there was terrorism 30 years ago by Sikh separatists, but there really isn't a threat now. But the Indian government somehow sees a threat. They're very concerned about these people. In fact, the person targeted in this plot had been designated a terrorist by the Indian government, but my sources are telling me that's just an overreaction. Nonetheless, a major international kerfuffle over this alleged plot, Hallie.
Ken Delaney, and thank you. We've got a lot more to get to here on a show of fast-moving developments on a Wednesday night, including coming up a new report saying a lot of us are doom spending, maybe even you, why some are so susceptible and what it could mean for the economy. Plus, a pretty stunning announcement from Aaron Rodgers, what he's now saying about his NFL return just months after tearing his Achilles. Some new numbers show doom spending is on the rise. It is going up, with 1 in 4 Americans coping with stress by shopping online or in stores. And this is especially true for Gen Zers and millennials. That's even with this same survey showing that practically everybody, 96% of Americans, are worried about the state of the economy. And yet, we are set to spend nearly $1 trillion this holiday shopping season. Let me bring in Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver. We'll talk about that potential disconnect in a second, Caleb. But first, explain, why are people my age and younger doom spending so much?
Because a lot of people don't feel like they're going to be ever be able to save enough money, and they feel like 73%, according to Intuit, say they would rather live in the moment than cut expenses. So the propensity to spend, especially around the holiday season, that group's hold to people. It's a lot easier to spend than it is to save. Saving and investing, kind of boring, but spending is a lot more fun, even though it's not the right thing for us most of the time.
So it's just the YOLO vibe but for a new generation.
Yeah, kind of. But when you look at credit card debt, the delinquencies are rising the most with Gen Z. 30 to 39-year-olds have the most credit card debt. The delinquencies are rising for them as well. The average credit card debt in the country now is around $5,900. So we know we've been overspending, and inflation has a lot to do with that. But this give-up mentality of there's nothing I can do about it, I'll never be able to catch up, that's dangerous. We like to see people change their mindset around that and be saving and investing more. But it's hard when we hear all about how much we need to be spending this holiday season.
That's right. And the issue there for millennials, too. But the question here is when you look at the numbers, right, people feel bad about how the economy is. That's what we're seeing in some of these survey results. But when you look at the actual economic numbers, listen, unemployment is relatively low. Inflation is still up, but it is going down, right? I mean, there is some thinking that perhaps the Fed will not keep hiking interest rates, right? Like, isn't there a reason to be optimistic when you look at it from just the math perspective?
Absolutely. And you mentioned the labor market. Wages have also risen over 4% this year, not necessarily keeping up with inflation, but folks are doing better. And when the labor market's strong and wages are rising and gas prices, Hallie, very important here, when those are falling, that makes people want to spend even more. They feel a little bit wealthier, and then you have a little bit of a rise in the stock market. That also contributes to the wealth effect.
It's that disconnect, though, right? And we talked about it. In the last 6 months, a third of people say their financial situation is worse, and yet a quarter of people are spending more money. The CEO of J.P. Morgan was talking about this effect, essentially. Listen to how he phrased it.
We've had a little bit of drugs injected directly into our system called fiscal stimulation, and they create this kind of sugar high, and we're in a sugar high. I don't know if it's going to end in a soft landing or something like that.
When you have a sugar high, you generally then have the sugar high crash, right? Is that how you see it? What is the expectation now for post-holidays?
Yeah, well, he's talking also about the $4 trillion the government put into the economy and sent to households during the pandemic. But yeah, you get a crash, and then what do? You spend again to feel better. So we want people to keep things under control. It's just so hard right now, and the pressure is to spend around the holidays.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, former First Lady Rosalynn Carter being laid to rest today in her hometown of Plains, Georgia. You see her casket there. Jimmy Carter, her husband, of course, was there for her funeral service at their longtime church. She's being buried in a private ceremony at the Carter family home. Number 2, President Biden. We told you earlier in the show he was in Colorado. The reason why he was in Colorado? Targeting the district of far-right Congresswoman Lauren Boebert, talking about his economic agenda, specifically the Inflation Reduction Act at a wind tower manufacturer in Pueblo. He referenced Boebert when saying that she, along with every single Republican colleague, voted against the law that made some of those investments and jobs possible. Number 3, speaking of Congress, George Santos may not be serving there much longer. Speaker Mike Johnson says the date is set. Friday is going to be the vote on whether or not to kick Santos out of Congress. Multiple Republicans are telling our team they think there's going to be enough support to actually expel him. Remember, Santos has pleaded not guilty to more than 20 federal charges related to misspending campaign funds. He says he's not going to run for re-election in 2024, but if he doesn't get kicked out, he wants to finish out his term. Number 4, a new study finds speed walking can actually lower your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. If you walk more than 4 miles an hour, it could reduce your risk by about 40%. Number 5, have you heard this yet? Aaron Rodgers, we're learning late today, he seems to be one step closer to making an NFL comeback. He's back at practice today for the New York Jets. Obviously, he's the quarterback there. We still don't know if he's going to play in an actual game this season, but the timing here is pretty remarkable. He only tore his Achilles like 3 months ago. It hasn't been that long for that kind of injury. We'll see what happens. When we come back, why billionaire Mark Cuban's business moves are fueling speculation about 2024. We'll tell you what he's telling our team. Plus, the rescue of a woman after she slid hundreds of feet down a mountain in Oregon. We'll bring it to you in just a second. The vice president today defending President Biden's ability to run the country when asked about concerns about his age. Listen.
But if there ever is a problem, do you think that you could go tell the American public?
Of course, if necessary, but there's no need for that. It is important we not be seduced into one of the only arguments that that side of the aisle has right now on this issue.
Harris calls it a political argument from the right with no substance. But remember, at the end of the day, President Biden's age is something people care about based on polling. Some 71% of people in key battleground states say that they believe that President Biden is too old to do his job effectively. We'll see how that plays out over the course of the coming year. And as we talk about 2024, we've got to talk about something that you might be talking about, and that is Mark Cuban shutting down rumors today that he may run for president next year. The whole thing was sparked by his announcement that he was going to leave Shark Tank next year. And then right after that, we're also finding out he's going to sell his majority stake in the Mavs, the Dallas Mavericks, for reportedly billions of dollars. He has been denying rumors he would run for a while now. Back in July, he told NBC News his family would, in his words, disown him if he ran for president. It appears that there has been no change in that perspective, as he told our Vaughn Hilliard today. Vaughn is joining us now. And Vaughn, listen, Mark Cuban, I remember running into him in spin rooms like years ago. I forget where. Like, he knows politics. He's engaged in the political sphere. So the speculation is not coming out of nothing, right? I mean, he floated the idea of running as an independent a few years back. Talk us through the dynamic here and what you're learning.
Right. And there's a reason I reached out to Mark Cuban again this morning. It was after these big developments in the potential sale here of the Dallas Mavericks and the potential of a $3.5 billion coming into his own pocketbook. Of course, he's already a billionaire. And No Labels is the political organization that is gaining ballot access to potentially put forward a presidential ticket, what they're calling a moderate presidential ticket. In the scenario, it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump rematch. And so they're looking at folks like Mark Cuban. And they have had conversations in the past, the political organization No Labels and Mark Cuban. And over the summer, you said it there, he told me quite explicitly that no, his family would disown him. But this morning, I know we're parsing words here, Hallie, but no plans of running is notably different here because Mark Cuban is potentially one of those guys that could be on this ticket. Joe Manchin, of course, the West Virginia senator, is also openly floating this. But this is a group that has already put nearly $70 million into an effort to qualify for the ballot around the country, and they're looking for somebody. And notably, Hallie, where is the No Labels convention next April? It's nowhere else other than Dallas, Texas, Hallie.
Vaughn Hilliard, thank you very much for staying on top of the Cuban beat, if you will. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of other stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Western Bureau, officials say they're rescuing a woman who slid hundreds of feet down Mount Hood. She apparently, look at this video, look at this picture here, I should say. She made it to the top and then fell on her way down. It's super icy up there. The whole thing apparently took about 7 hours today. Fortunately, she is expected to be okay. Out of our Midwest Bureau, a Grinch, apparently with some kind of a gun, hitting one Kentucky neighborhood, shooting an inflatable Santa. Did you see that? Right there in somebody's front yard. The people who live there say they heard a bang. They even caught it on video, and then Santa just, there he goes. The homeowners said they spent $200 on that Santa just a few days before. Also out of our Midwest Bureau, officials in Kansas are going back to the drawing board to redesign a new license plate after some pretty serious complaints over the proposed design. People didn't like the gold and navy color scheme, calling it dull and ugly. The governor says the redesign will delay the rollout of the new plates by about 6 months. So, Kansans, get ready for some spicy jazz on your license plates, apparently. Good luck. Coming up. How far would you go to help your dog live longer or live a better life? A new drug hopes to do just that and appears to be on track to get the green light. That's in our original in just a sec. To tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's a new drug in the works that could keep your very good boy or girl, your favorite pup, alive longer. With the FDA this week essentially telling one company that they're on the right track toward getting the green light to sell that drug to the public. So, have scientists actually figured out the fountain of pooch youth? NBC's Valerie Castro has more.
Come on, Phil. In a dog's world, the future is far less important than what's right under its nose. But more time with your pup, the latest goal from doggy pharma companies. Now that's intriguing for owners.
He's just an old man. He's an old soul. The more research that came out about it, I think I would be interested.
One company is making some headway. Loyal giving NBC News a letter from the FDA saying its drug meant to increase dogs' lifespans just met one of the many conditions needed on its way to market approval. Loyal's hopes that its shot every 3 to 6 months could slow the aging process in big dogs over 40 pounds that typically have shorter lifespans, giving you possibly an extra year of cuddles, fetch, and slobbery kisses.
It compensates for what we believe drives that big dog short lifespan post-maturity.
Celine Haliwa, founder and CEO of Loyal, says the drug lowers the production and release of proteins called growth factors to slow down aging, but they won't make your big dogs smaller.
They're still going to be big. We're not creating medium Danes or anything.
The road to getting the drugs into paws across the country is a long one. Loyal still needs to do more research, show its drug actually increases a dog's lifespan, and provide more safety and manufacturing data for the FDA to vet. The FDA declined to provide a statement on the drug, saying it couldn't comment on applications in progress. And Loyal's not alone. Other researchers are hot on the trail to sniff out their own version. The Dog Aging Project is looking into the drug rapamycin.
Rapamycin in the laboratory has been shown to increase healthy lifespan in mice and worms and flies. And we're interested in whether it can increase healthy lifespan in dogs.
Whether or whenever these drugs go to market, there'll be plenty of owners whose ears perk up at the idea.
I would consider, depending on, what kind of clinical trials have they done.
Others less sure about a first-of-its-kind medication.
You can't know if the dog would want to. I would feel uncomfortable about doing that.
One bioethicist echoing concerns, saying drugs like these are taking the eye off the ball.
If you think about golden retrievers, those dogs have lowered their lifespan over the past years because of breeding for particular traits. There's so much more that we could do to improve dogs' lives.
The desire to keep a dog alive longer mirrors goals we have for our own species, with researchers working on drugs that could extend human life expectancy by years or even decades.
If you ask me, do I want to live longer, I would say yes.
For now, the focus is on more tail wagging, though it's up in the air when Tilly and Ozzy and Yeti's time will be up. Eventually, all dogs go to heaven.
Valerie is joining us now. And to be clear, right, years and years of work that these companies have got to start doing before this is even a possibility for, like, your dog or my dog or somebody else's dog, right?
Or my parents' dog, exactly. You're not going to see this at your vet's office anytime soon. There are still a lot of regulatory hurdles that this will have to pass, a lot of clinical trials. There will need to be a thorough review by the FDA. But, Hallie, there is some hope that there could be a conditional approval by 2026.
Valerie Castro, thank you very much for that. Still to come here on the show, a lot more to get to, including Taylor Swift, queen of Spotify Wrapped. But she's not the only one on top. We're checking that list twice. So it is the most wonderful time of the year for people who listen to music. The day of the Spotify Wrapped drop, which I'm sure has entered your group chat with everybody telling on themselves about who they listen to the most. But you know what? Spotify doesn't care. They don't care who your number one was, because in the end, all the hype, any of it, it's all good for business. In just the last year, Spotify has gotten 118 million more listeners. And apparently, every single one of them listened to Taylor Swift 1 billion times. She is the global artist of the year. But she didn't have the most streamed song or the most streamed album in the country. That was Morgan Wallen with Bad Bunny, my number one, taking home most streamed album globally. I want to bring in Chloe Malas now. Chloe, super quick, who is your number one?
Oh, my goodness. Fleetwood Mac.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. Not what I expected.
Hold on. Taylor Swift is number 4 in my Wrapped, just so you know. So I am with it. I'm with the times. Right. I'm listening to Swift.
But I love it. You're an analog reporter in a digital world, girl. I'm here for it. We'll talk about that in a second. But what's so interesting to me, right? Everybody is having this conversation today. Like, it just seems like everybody is talking about Spotify Wrapped. And it is such an indicator of the way that Spotify, in so many ways, has changed the music business. It is, for today, them, too. Like, it's free advertising for them all day.
It is bringing in so much money for the music artists and for publishing. Back in the day when you would buy a CD for $20 and then maybe you might not like the full album, this has revolutionized the way that we listen to music and how artists make money. I just want to point out that in 2021, Spotify paid out more than any other service and set the record for the highest annual payment from any single retailer in the history of the music industry at $7 billion and over $3 billion to those who have the publishing rights. So Spotify is really good for artists. Artists, they want Spotify because it's making them tons of money.
So artists like Taylor Swift, right? I mean, she's making money in tons of ways anyway. She is, as we said, kind of queen of the Wrapped this year. Our team Slack is like full of that, right? Lots of Swifties on our team. We have lots of we do have lots of Bad Bunny lovers too, but it's not just her, right? She may have 26 billion streams, but there are so many other artists, at least a couple huge names, who also are getting a ton of attention on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do want to point out that, yes, this is the year of Taylor Swift, but we also have to say in terms of global streams, yes, Taylor was at 26.1 billion, but you have Miley Cyrus's Flowers at 1.6 billion. Yeah. And then, like you said, Bad Bunny's Un Verano Sin at 4.5 billion. So, I mean, obviously there's a big jump in the numbers here. There's several billion between Taylor, Miley, and then Bad Bunny. But, I do want to point out, though, this is a very significant moment for Taylor Swift to dethrone this pop powerhouse who is Bad Bunny, who has held this coveted title for 3 years in a row since 2020. So, we're all saying it. She's good for the music industry, she's good for the movies, and she's good for the NFL. I mean, what can Taylor Swift not do? And she's raking in the cash.
Wrapped, apparently, but that maybe next year she'll go
She
for
has
that,
to
Chloe.
Get above Sting as well. I didn't even tell you about Sting. We'll talk about that later.
Obsessed. I need to see yours, and I want to thank the producers who very vulnerably shared their Wrapped we've been showing to you in that graphic. It is so fun, Chloe, because it's not just a culture story. It is like a legit business story, too. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
That does it for us this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now. We are coming on the air tonight with a lot of fast-moving developments from the Middle East. Another group of hostages held in Gaza, including one American now released. We have just heard from the president about this in the middle of a scramble to try to extend this truce deal between Israel and Hamas. It is expiring as we speak. Tonight, questions about what comes next, when fighting could restart, and the diplomatic race against time to get innocent people home. We'll take you live to the region. Plus, the coldest day of the season on the East Coast, packing a punch, creating some dangerous conditions tonight. How folks are getting through it and whether there's a light at the end of the tunnel for the millions feeling it. Plus, new tonight, why Elon Musk is telling the head of Disney to, his words, go F himself tonight. Coming after the head of X, formerly Twitter, managed to get Disney and other big companies to pull their ads off the platform. We're getting into it in just a minute. Plus, a new rule in the UK now banning gymnastics coaches from weighing young athletes. How that's tied to a bombshell report on the culture of abuse inside British gymnastics. Plus, could a shark be the country's next president? Why Mark Cuban is generating a ton of speculation about a potential presidential run and what he's telling us about it later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and in just the last hour, we've learned at least one American is among the 10 more hostages being released tonight. According to a Qatari official, according to President Biden and others, the big question tonight, is that going to be the final prisoner exchange here in the Israel-Hamas war? As that truce extension, that temporary ceasefire, looks like it could be ending as we speak. Here's President Biden talking about this American woman just released in just the last hour. Watch.
Layat Benin is safe in Egypt. She's crossed the border. I talked with her mother and father. They're very appreciative, and Things are moving well. She'll soon be home with her 3 children.
President Biden there. You watched it live last hour right here on NBC News. It comes as you're seeing now 2 more of the now former hostages, Israeli women, being transferred into Red Cross trucks in the last couple of hours. You can see some of the video here from Hamas of some of the other hostage releases as well. This is even as a senior Arab diplomat directly involved in negotiations tells NBC News there is a glimmer of hope that this truce deal could be extended for at least 2 more days. But that is not official yet. That is why at this hour, 6:02 Eastern, there are so many questions. We've got team coverage tonight. Monica Alba live for us here in Washington. But I want to start with David Noriega, who's live for us in the region in Tel Aviv. David, we have seen a lot unfold even in just the last 90 minutes here. And it feels like the biggest question now that we know at least 1 American hostage has been released. What happens to the other American woman who is still believed to be held in captivity? And will a truce extension, possibly 48 hours, come tonight?
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. So here's what's happened so far tonight. We saw 16 hostages released over the course of the evening in 2 different groups. That was unusual. Tonight is the first time in the duration of this temporary truce that we've seen that. In the second group, that was the 14 with 10 Israeli citizens and 4 Thai nationals. Included in the 10 Israeli citizens, dual Israeli-American national Liat Benin Atzili. You mentioned the other American woman who is still being held captive in Gaza. She's important because she falls under the framework of this agreement, which was for women and children hostages in exchange for women and children prisoners. But there are other Americans still in Gaza as well, including Liat's husband, Aviv. This is something that we're seeing happen over and over again. Families getting essentially separated by the partial release. Some members of the family get released in this ceasefire agreement while others are left behind. This is one of the reasons why the diplomatic effort to see the ceasefire extended is ongoing. We know that Secretary of State Blinken just recently landed here in Tel Aviv. The pressure is on from the United States, from other nation states, other diplomatic actors trying to get this ceasefire extended. What we've heard during the course of the day is maybe another 48 hours. But we also know that some of the people here, including the Qataris who are leading these negotiations, want it to last even longer, potentially even indefinitely. Hallie?
Monica, let me go to you here because in just the last couple of minutes, one of our NBC News colleagues has spoken with the father of the American woman who was just released tonight. He was talking about that conversation that he had with President Biden. You heard the president reference it and how his daughter seems to be doing. Tell us more.
It's so funny, Hallie, in that this conversation we understand that my colleague Daniel Arkin had with the father of Liat. He said it was literally like 20 seconds after he had gotten off the phone with the president of the United States that he almost couldn't believe that that was the case, and that with his own eyes he was seeing images of his daughter as he was on the phone with my colleague, again almost in disbelief that that was the case, but relieved in his own words to see that she seemed to be, quote, in pretty good shape, at least referring to what he was able to glean just from the image of her with Red Cross officials before she gets all of those medical checks. And he really was joking with my colleague, saying that he already knows exactly what he wants to say to his daughter when he sees her in the hospital. He's simply going to say to her, "What's up? What's new? What have I missed?" So trying to approach this, I think, with a little bit of levity and humor that I find very admirable and remarkable, given everything that this family has gone through, not to mention what Liat has gone through in captivity. But it gives you a sense of just how close these families have been in touch with the Biden administration and with the president himself, who wanted to give an assessment, who wanted to also let her father know what he knew at that time so that they could continue sharing information. And according to Liat's father, President Biden invited him and his family to the White House at some point. And he said to my colleague, we might take him up on that. It was so nice to thank him personally for his efforts in obtaining the release of our daughter. Again, we know that this is really just the beginning of the process for her as she emerges from this nightmare. But her family relieved that she is out, though, as David notes there, her husband, we believe, is still being held by Hamas or other groups in Gaza. Hallie.
One of maybe 160 hostages, according to the Israelis, still being held in Hamas captivity, David. And so even as Mon talks about the relief, obviously, of this family, there is despair and anguish for so many other families as well.
That's right, Hallie. Not only that, these feelings exist within the same families in a lot of cases. There are so many cases, actually, more than I've been able to count, of families where, as I mentioned earlier, for instance, a mother and children get released in the context of the ceasefire, but a father is left behind. Or, for example, yesterday I was able to meet at Hostage Square here in Tel Aviv a man who, after the first day of the ceasefire, was able to reunite with his mother, who was kidnapped in a kibbutz and held captive by Hamas, but is still waiting for the release of his father. We did an interview with him. I want to play you a little bit of it. Here's what he had to say.
The first 2 days, we allowed ourselves to be happy and for 1 second to put it on the side and be happy that she's back with us. And started Sunday, we are back to work and making sure to do whatever we can, like we did before, to make sure people will hear us and try to bring it back. And this is urgent. They need to work on the next deal and make sure everyone are released and do whatever needed to make sure everyone are released.
Hallie, I've come to think of these specific families in this specific situation, as kind of representing the position of limbo or sort of crossroads that Israel finds itself in. On the one hand, we have seen over the last 6 days that this ceasefire agreement works when it comes to getting hostages out, but we don't know how long it will hold. We don't know how much longer the Israeli government is willing to prolong it. And these families are stuck in the middle, right? On the one hand, they've been able to enjoy the benefits of the ceasefire by reuniting with their loved ones, knowing that they're healthy, knowing that they're well. On the other hand, as Yair, the person you just heard from, explained to me, he has no idea where his father is. He doesn't know if he's alive or dead. He doesn't know if he's healthy or sick. He doesn't know if he's being held by Hamas or some other group. That state of limbo, I think, is one that many people are feeling, even if they're not exactly in that situation. Hallie.
David, it's such an important point. Mon, let me just get to you quickly here on the diplomatic scramble that is happening even tonight as we speak. In the last, I want to say, 45 minutes or so, we watched live here as Secretary of State Tony Blinken touched down in Tel Aviv for yet another visit to the region. He has been intimately involved in some of these negotiations based on the reporting that we've done, led by, obviously, the Qataris and others to try to get some of these hostages out. What else do we know about that process?
Yeah, he is definitely a big part of making this personal push to the Israelis and to his other counterparts by continuing to stress why any kind of temporary truce and extension is very beneficial, not just to Israel, but to the U.S. in terms of getting more hostages out in other countries as well. But somebody else who's playing a key role here that we're seeing is a presidential envoy who specializes in hostage affairs, and that's Roger Carstens, who's also going to be in the region pushing for this, in addition to the CIA director, Bill Burns, who has been in Doha for these critical meetings. And really, the U.S. continues to argue that the more that a pause can take place and be expanded, the more humanitarian aid can flow into Gaza. And then this is something that likely Secretary Blinken will deliver in person, a perhaps more pointed message to the Israelis that if and when any of the hostilities resume in terms of the fighting, that they need to be incredibly precise to take care of civilian life. Hallie.
Monica Alba, David Noriega, our thanks to both of you in an evening where there has been a lot of news breaking and perhaps more to come. Thank you. Pull out for a second, and there is a bigger picture here, right? There are new and increasing concerns about tensions, not just in Israel and Gaza, but tensions in the region more broadly. As we are learning late today that a U.S. Navy ship shot down an unmanned drone launched from Yemen in one of the areas controlled by Houthi rebels. It comes as the U.S. military is putting out some new warnings against Iran. Remember, the Houthis have links to Iran, with the U.S. saying an Iranian drone made what they call unsafe actions near a U.S. aircraft in the Middle East. I want to bring in Courtney Cuby, who's posted up at the Pentagon for us. There are lots of threads tonight. We haven't even gotten to that crash, that Osprey crash that we'll get to in just a second, Court. First, start with this news of a drone getting shot down, this new warning here, how it plays into the backdrop of what we're seeing regionally.
Yeah, and this isn't even the first time that we've seen the U.S. Navy shoot down a drone believed to be fired by Houthi rebels in Yemen in the last several weeks. In this case, frankly, in similar cases we've already seen, the USS Carney, a U.S. Navy ship in the region, shot down a drone that the U.S. military says just came a little too close. Now, they can't say for certain that it was actually targeting the U.S. Navy ship, but they have the right of self-defense if there is some sort of a projectile, like a drone, like a missile, that may be coming close enough the U.S. military always retains the right of self-defense to take it out. That's what they have. That's what we saw here. And I have to say, Hallie, this just shows a continuing repeated pattern of attacks by the Houthi rebels in Yemen, whether it's these drones that we've been seeing them fire off every couple of days for the last several weeks. They've fired off short-range ballistic missiles, including one on Sunday that came pretty close to another U.S. Navy ship. Defense officials are extremely concerned about this continuing pattern by the Houthis, and what they are seeing is not only escalation in their behavior, but a real escalation in their capabilities, Hallie.
How about, Court, anything you're getting late tonight on what went wrong in that deadly crash off the coast of Japan, that deadly helicopter crash?
Yeah, Hallie, we really don't know a whole lot about what happened here. There's been some reports on the ground from witnesses, but U.S. military officials really can't confirm any of that. What we do know is there were 8 U.S. airmen on board. They were assigned to an Air Force Special Operations Wing that was based out of Kadena, Japan, so right there in the region. We know at least remains of one individual were found earlier today. The search and rescue continues, but U.S. military officials also continue to notify and reach out to the next of kin, the loved ones of these missing airmen. It's a really tragic event. The big question is, this was a U.S. military, an Air Force Osprey, a CV-22. These aircraft have a string of incidents over the last several years, in fact, to the point where Air Force Special Operations Command, who is the umbrella over this air wing that was flying this, they actually called for a safety stand down more than 2 weeks in summer of 2022 because of a malfunctioning clutch issue that they saw in several Ospreys. The big question now is there another one of these maintenance or issues, some kind of a mechanical issue with the aircraft that could lead to another safety stand down? We'll keep asking that.
Courtney Kube, I know you will. Thank you so much. Also tonight here at home, several feet of snow. It is coming down. It is piling up, in fact, for a lot of people, and it is getting dangerous here. Car crashes reported in some spots. Part of the first big lake effect snow event of the season. What does that even mean? It means that really cold water from the Great Lakes is blown up by wind and then it falls back down as snow. With the National Weather Service saying in places like upstate New York, it can be hard to see right now through all of the snow, 1 to 2 inches an hour. Today has been the coldest so far this season for a lot of places along the East Coast, even all the way down south in Florida, where it is so chilly that all these manatees are snuggling up to a power plant where the water is a little bit warmer. You can see a big group of them enjoying that on the coldest day in Florida since last January. We've got our team standing by for you. Jesse Kirsch in Ohio, meteorologist Bill Cairns. Jesse, let me start with you. And safety-wise, talk to us about the level of concern here that this is just the beginning of the season and folks are already getting hammered.
Yeah, so Hallie, this is something that the Great Lakes region is used to year in, year out, getting this lake effect snow this time of year. You talked about what leads to it. You've got the relatively warmer waters in the Great Lakes, and the moisture goes up into these cold winds, becomes clouds, and then you get snow as a result of it. As you can see, it's cleared up now here, and we're through with the lake effect snow warnings in the region, but you still get the aftermath of the slush and the ice, which in the aftermath of any snowstorm, we're always, trying to be cognizant of. Something that stood out when I talked to some local police official yesterday in western Pennsylvania was because this is the first big storm of the season in this region, you have people who are used to summer and fall driving, so they're not in the snow mindset, and that's something that they just are stressing all the more, the reason right now to be pushing for people to be cautious on the roadways, have the right kinds of tires, make sure you're giving yourself extra time. And you can see we've got, piles of snow pushed to the side here, which when they've been clearing out, and just looking out here in the Cleveland suburbs right now, things are pretty clear now. But we saw upwards of 3.5 feet in one part of New York, over a foot in several locations, stretching from Michigan all the way east to New York State. So, the winter wake up is definitely upon us. And then even beyond the snow zone, you've got a lot of people who are looking at temperatures well below average right now, but hopefully things are going to be thawing. That's what it looks like tomorrow. And I know Bill will get into a little bit more of that, but just to share, it's not all bad news for some people. It's good news that we're looking at the return of winter in the eyes of some. Here's part of what we heard from someone in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania earlier.
This storm is around, its average. We're excited to have the national news here, but it's not that big of a deal for us. It's a good snowstorm, especially at this time of year, but, this is par for the course for us.
par for the course and helps make ski season pick up more quickly, Hallie, for those looking to go out and enjoy the elements.
Perhaps those whose names rhyme with Kessie Jersh. Jesse, thank you so much. Appreciate you being out there for us.
Waiting to see what you were going to do with that rhyme.
You're welcome. Thank you. Let me get to Bill Cairns. Bill, we meet again here, and what is so interesting, and I know that I'm sure you like to hit the slopes too, what is so interesting, though, is like for almost everybody watching right now, no matter where you live,
yeah,
I'm willing to bet it is either really cold, really snowy, or really rainy where you are.
It's looking like that. I mean, this upcoming weekend is just going to be a mess. We're getting to a very active weather pattern. So if it's quiet where you are now, enjoy it. It likely won't stay that way. As Jesse was mentioning, all the snow is almost gone. Just a couple flakes left here in central New York. The cold is still with us, though, from about Chicago. Buffalo still cold, 16. Burlington, New York doesn't feel good. D.C., Richmond. And tonight we're going to have one more chilly, cold night. And it does look like we're going to have a chance of a frost or a freeze in South Florida and North Florida, especially in the Panhandle region. But the temperatures, where we're starting to recover a little bit on the East Coast, but look at St. Louis and Chicago. You're about almost 20 degrees warmer right now than this time yesterday. So for tonight, the only concerns, the plants, pets, make sure you have them indoors tonight. Southern Georgia and the Panhandle, Florida, that's where it's going to get down to about freezing later on. And Hallie, as you were mentioning, as we head towards the upcoming weekend, things get active. First tomorrow, isolated severe weather, maybe even a tornado. We're talking to you from Houston up to Livingston, Lufkin, into areas around Lake Charles. And then the weekend is a mess. We get rainstorm coming up the East Coast. At the same time, a huge storm comes in the Pacific Northwest. And all of a sudden, you heard about El Nino and how active the winter weather pattern typically is. That's what we're going to start to see. By the time we get to Saturday, a soaking rain in the southeast, heavy snow in the northern Rockies, a lot of rain for coastal Pacific Northwest. And then Sunday, that storm comes up the East Coast for a rainy Sunday. And then a new storm comes into the west. So if you've enjoyed a quiet fall, it's coming to an end, Hallie. And Hallie, I was actually surprised to see you at work today. I thought for sure you'd be on assignment on Treegate and the cover-up, but I guess we'll have to work on that another night.
For those of you who were not watching the show last night, Bill Cairns was very distraught at the toppling of the national Christmas tree that fell over in some wind gusts. I don't know. I'm shocked to see you. I thought you'd be calling out.
Everyone's just believing the 40-mile-per-hour gust did it, and it's just been wiped under another Beltway cover-up, Hallie. Just write them all down.
I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go on that. Bill Cairns, great to see you. Thank you, as always. So listen, one thing that we talk about here, right, not just the weather, but people traveling, and a little bit of interesting news here. Prices are down to fill up your tank. In fact, they are down every day since the peak that you might remember back in September, according to AAA. $3.25 a gallon, down 5% year over year. The Street coming just in time for the holidays. So not a bad thing to save a little extra cash as you head into the chaos of the holiday spending season. Tom Costello is joining us now on this. First, practical angle. This is good news on the news, right? Like if you drive and you need gas to put into your car, like this is not a bad thing here, even though it's different for different parts of the country.
Listen, this is great news, especially when the country has been struggling with inflation. This is really good. These are good numbers here. $3.25 right now is the national average, according to AAA. And a year ago, we were at $3.57, right down there on the bottom. So it has been dropping pretty much every week for the better part of 2 months now. That's really good news. And here's the macro number here. I went back and looked right now, Hallie. Listen to this. We've got 16 states, maybe 15, depending on how you count. I'm not going to bore you with the details, that are at or below $3 a gallon. At or below $3 a gallon, mostly in the South. Yes, we know. Everybody out west, boy, we feel your pain because they pay higher taxes on their gas, and so they're sometimes $2 more than what's paid for what they pay in the South. But nonetheless, that is a really encouraging number. And it means more dollars, more cents in your pocket going into the holidays, especially when everything else seems to cost so much.
Okay, so that's the sort of picture for what it means for us, for me, for you, for our friends, our family. Get big picture now. Go macro, right, with the international geopolitical landscape, what it means for oil production.
Well, listen, the Russia war in Ukraine continues to be a big factor here. But why are we seeing prices go down? It's supply and demand. People don't drive as much in the winter and the cold weather, but there's an awful lot of supply. In fact, surprise, surprise, the United States makes up 80% of the new supply out there on the market. 80%. OPEC is not nearly as influential as it used to be. It's talking about forcing cuts this week. we'll see. They may not have the staying power or the influence that they used to have.
Tom Costello, thank you very much for that. Good to see you.
You bet.
Some startling new details tonight about a would-be assassination plot allegedly linked to the Indian government and a Sikh activist living here in the U.S., in New York, with a history of criticizing the Indian government. Here's the deal. The DOJ is announcing the arrest of somebody who officials say was recruited by an Indian government employee to help carry out this assassination scheme. The plan? Find a hitman. The problem? The person they hired was an undercover DEA agent. Officials are not identifying the target, but they do say he's made India's leaders mad by calling for an independent Sikh state. If this all sounds familiar, that's because back in June, a different Sikh activist, the man you're seeing here, was shot and killed outside a temple in Canada. Investigators are still looking for who's responsible for that killing, but Canadian officials say the hit was ordered by high-ranking officials in the Indian government, something the Indians deny. NBC's Ken Delanian is following this story for us. It is dramatic, Ken. It feels like something out of a Hollywood script here. Talk us through what we know.
Yeah, it's remarkable, Hallie. Essentially, the U.S. government here all but pointing the finger at the Indian government, saying that this plot was orchestrated by an Indian government employee in India who described himself as essentially a senior intelligence operative. And the indictment all but says that this plot is linked to the one in Canada. And I learned from a senior U.S. official that President Biden discussed this matter with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the G20 summit in September. The U.S. government taking this very seriously because, if true, it suggests that the Indian government is crossing a very serious line here and going after its political opponents via assassination in friendly countries, in the United States and Canada. This is something that, until now, only the Russians or other kinds of rogue governments have done. Now, again, the Indian government denies that they're behind this, and the indictment doesn't expressly accuse the government, but it's a remarkable situation. And obviously, the plot in Canada succeeded. A Sikh activist was shot and killed. The one in New York was foiled by an undercover operative. What's interesting is I checked with CIA and experts in the region, and they say there really is no credible threat of Sikh terrorism to India. These separatists are calling for a separate Sikh enclave in India, but there was terrorism 30 years ago by Sikh separatists, but there really isn't a threat now. But the Indian government somehow sees a threat. They're very concerned about these people. In fact, the person targeted in this plot had been designated a terrorist by the Indian government, but my sources are telling me that's just an overreaction. Nonetheless, a major international kerfuffle over this alleged plot, Hallie.
Ken Delanian, thank you. Coming up here on the show, some pretty strong comments tonight from Elon Musk, to say the least, why he's telling the head of Disney to go F himself next. Plus, officials in France say they're going to start banning something on beaches and at parks. We'll tell you what in a sec. Some breaking news into us here with Elon Musk in just the last hour or so, sending a very direct message to at least one of the advertisers boycotting his platform X, formerly known as Twitter, because of anti-Semitic posts he amplified there. Listen.
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f*** yourself.
In the past few weeks, big advertisers like Disney, Apple, others stopped putting ads on X because Musk platformed these anti-Semitic tweets. That was obviously a monetary problem for X. I want to bring in Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver, and this is so interesting because this is one of the first times that Musk has very directly taken on this issue that has built and built over the last several weeks about these advertisers, these big companies, these big corporations saying, wait a second, I don't want my content next to this anti-Semitic stuff that Musk has allowed to be on the platform.
Yeah, and if you listen to the entire quote from that DealBook interview, he said that several times, go after yourself several times, and then he said, hi, Bob. We could only assume he was talking to Bob Iger.
Bob Iger, head of Disney.
The head of Disney, which was one of the big advertisers that pulled. But you mentioned other advertisers. We're talking about some of the biggest advertisers out there, including Comcast, the parent company of this network, Warner Brothers, Apple, Coca-Cola, others have pulled their ads. And he also said in that interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin, I wish they would stop. I wish they would stop advertising and then he dropped the F-bomb. So clearly putting his finger in the eye of the people that pay the bills to run X, which is an advertising delivery mechanism, or was until he bought it, and now we don't know really what he's trying to do with it.
He also addressed, and I think it was an apology. Let's call it that, or let's see it. We're going to play that sound in a second. He addressed that post that created so much of the concern here, a lot of the uproar, in which he agreed with an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. I want to play what he said so we can hear it all together specifically. Listen.
I'm sorry for that tweet or post. It was foolish of me. Of the 30,000, it might be literally the worst and dumbest post that I've ever done.
The worst and dumbest post I've ever done. That is fascinating because Elon Musk is not somebody who is often known for the walk back, Caleb. Fair?
Absolutely not. And he was also just in Israel, but he did tell Andrew Ross Sorkin at the DealBook conference that it was not an apology tour why he went over there to speak to President Netanyahu, even though it happened right after all of this happened. So he's in a weird place. He also said in his tweets that he's not an anti-Semite. He's a philo-Semite. I had to look that one up. That's an admirer of Jews. So he was kind of off the handle today at this conference, talking about it for the first time, but also saying clearly to his advertisers, I don't care, I don't need you, and saying he will convince his followers and his fans to boycott the companies that are boycotting X. We'll see if that actually happens.
Is that true? Can X survive without those advertisers?
Not as an advertising delivery company, but he has slimmed the company way down. He bought it for $44 billion. We have no idea what his plans are for X going forward.
Caleb Silver, fascinating night there with that DealBook Summit. Many headlines coming out of that. Thank you for bringing it to us, developing tonight. Appreciate it. Over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, actress Shannon Doherty, who's best known for 90210 and her role there. She says her stage 4 breast cancer has spread to her bones. In an interview with People magazine, she's staying optimistic, telling them she is not done with living. She's 52 years old and says she wants to make it known that people with terminal cancer are capable of living quality lives. Number 2, President Biden targeting far-right Congresswoman Lauren Boebert today in Colorado. We told you he was in that state, and this is why. He's talking about his economic agenda, specifically the Inflation Reduction Act. And he referred to Congresswoman Boebert, saying she, along with every single Republican colleague of hers, voted against the law that made some of those investments into clean energy possible in that state. Number 3, speaking of Congress, George Santos may not be serving in it very much longer. Speaker Mike Johnson, new tonight, says the House is going to vote Friday on whether or not to kick Santos out of the House chamber. Multiple Republicans are telling our team they think there's probably enough support to get Santos expelled. Remember, he's pleaded not guilty to more than 20 federal charges. He says he's not going to run for re-election in 2024, but he does plan to finish out the rest of his term if he doesn't get kicked out of Congress first. Number 4, the International Olympic Committee says the French Alps region is its top choice to host the Winter Olympics in 2030. And as for the Winter Olympics in 2034, heads up, Salt Lake City, you're the favorite. Officials want to finalize both those games sometime next year. Number 5, Aaron Rodgers may be one step closer to making his NFL comeback just a few months after tearing his Achilles. Remember that first game of the season? Well, now the quarterback for the Jets is back at practice. It is apparently just on a limited basis, and we still don't know if he's going to play an actual game, but the timing is fascinating there considering that injury and how relatively not that long ago it happened. Come back. We've got some new details tonight after former Marine Paul Whelan was attacked in a Russian prison. What we know about his condition. Plus, is Mark Cuban considering a run for the White House? What he's telling our team tonight next. Officials today proposing some changes to rules around the safety regulations for baby loungers after multiple babies suffocated and died while in them. We're talking about things like these. You can see them here. They're kind of padded. You can lie a baby down on them, but they are also potentially dangerous because things like this can happen. This is a picture one parent sent to the agency that decides on the safety standards of the products you buy, using a doll to show how they found their 3-month-old hanging off her lounger after the baby kicked her legs and pushed herself upward. Fortunately, in this instance, the baby was okay, but that is not always the case. NBC News, if you've been watching this show, if you've been watching this network, you know that we have covered repeatedly our investigation this year that found at least 25 babies died in these loungers since 2015. That is significantly more deaths than officials had previously announced. Ann Thompson is joining us now. And this has been a conversation that has been happening now for months. We're talking recalls. We're talking about congressional pressure. Now this new move. So where does it put us in terms of trying to get a handle on this issue, of trying to come to a longer-term solution?
Well, what the CPSC has proposed, Hallie, are the first ever regulations of these infant loungers and support pillows. The problem is they're just too pillowy, if you will, and they're not meant for children to sleep on, infants to sleep on, but that's what happens. So what the CPSC wants to do, what it's proposing, is to make these loungers flatter, thinner, and firmer, and to make them as firm as a crib mattress, so the baby just lies there, and when it rolls over, it doesn't risk suffocating itself. But this is a long way off, and today Commissioner Richard Trumka walked me through it.
It's not going to be that these products are on store shelves as safe as we'd like to see them tomorrow. We put forward a proposed rule today. We're going to put forward a final rule before the end of next September.
So we are looking at perhaps 18 months before this rule is even finalized, and then the manufacturers have to get on board. So in the meantime, it's really important that the parents follow the instructions and read them. Don't assume they're safe for sleeping. Read the manufacturer's instructions. And most of them say the child must be awake and the child must be supervised when they are on this product. You
said a word that's important there, Ann. You said manufacturers, plural. And the reason why that matters, we're not talking about just one product from one single company. This is essentially a class of products, right? There's several companies that make this kind of thing. What are we hearing from them about this potential rule change?
You know, it's interesting, Hallie, they just this afternoon came out with a statement, and they said that they are willing to work with the CPSC on any kind of regulation. But again, they stressed that they want these products to be safe, and they said that parents need to follow those instructions that are on there. The problem is that it looks so comfy. It looks comfy to an adult, but an adult isn't an infant, and an infant needs to have that hard surface so it doesn't roll over and suffocate, and that's what has to happen. You see this warning label. It was interesting. I asked Commissioner Trumka what he thinks of warning labels. He's not very impressed. He said, look, people read them. Sometimes they don't. What has to happen is these products need to be redesigned, because the way they are now, they are just too dangerous for the youngest among us.
Ann Thompson, thank you so much for that. Other news now, and Vice President Harris today defending President Biden's ability to run the country when she was asked at that Deal Book Summit we talked about a little bit ago, when she was asked about concerns over his age.
But if there ever is a problem, do you think that you could go tell the American public?
Of course, if necessary, but there's no need for that. It is important we not be seduced into one of the only arguments that that side of the aisle has right now on this issue.
Harris is calling it a political argument from the right with no substance. But remember, at the end of the day, the president's age is still something that people care about, according to polling here. Some 71% of people in key battleground states, according to the New York Times Siena poll, says they agree that the president, they feel, is too old to do his job effectively. We'll see how that plays out next year. Speaking of all things 2024, could a shark end up in the White House? Mark Cuban is shutting down that speculation today with these rumors he may run for president next year. People kind of thought maybe he'd throw his name into the ring after he announced he's planning to leave Shark Tank next year. And then right on the heels of that, announced he'll sell his majority stake in the Mavs, the Dallas Mavericks, for reportedly billions of dollars. He's been denying rumors he'd run for a while now. Back in July, he told NBC News in an email that his family would, in his words, disown him if he ran for president. And today, when NBC reached back out to be like, hey, any changes to that plan? He says he still has no plans to run. Vaughn Hilliard is the one who is in touch with Mr. Cuban. Vaughn is joining us now. And Vaughn, listen, Mark Cuban, I remember running into him in spin rooms like years ago. I forget where. Like, he knows politics. He's engaged in the political sphere. So the speculation is not coming out of nothing, right? I mean, he floated the idea of running as an independent a few years back. Talk us through the dynamic here and what you're learning.
Right, and there's a reason I reached out to Mark Cuban again this morning. It was after these big developments in the potential sale here of the Dallas Mavericks and the potential of a $3.5 billion coming into his own pocketbook. Of course, he's already a billionaire, and No Labels is the political organization that is gaining ballot access to potentially put forward a presidential ticket, what they're calling a moderate presidential ticket. In the scenario, it's Joe Biden versus Donald Trump rematch. And so they're looking at folks like Mark Cuban, and they have had conversations in the past, the political organization No Labels and Mark Cuban, and over the summer, you said it there, he told me quite explicitly that no, his family would disown him. But this morning, I know we're parsing words here, Hallie, but no plans of running is notably different here, because Mark Cuban is potentially one of those guys that could be on this ticket. Joe Manchin, of course, the West Virginia senator, is also openly floating this, but this is a group that has already put nearly $70 million into an effort to qualify for the ballot around the country, and they're looking for somebody. And notably, Hallie, where is the No Labels convention next April? It's nowhere else other than Dallas, Texas, Hallie.
Vaughn Hilliard, thank you very much for staying on top of the Cuban beat, if you will. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our international teams have done it for you. Here are some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of the Vatican, the Pope is still having some trouble breathing, telling an audience today his voice was not pretty. A Vatican spokesperson later said the Pope does not have a fever, but he is on antibiotics. He came down with the flu last week. In Russia, the former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan was attacked in a Russian prison, according to his brother. His brother says somebody punched Whelan in the face, who then had to defend himself at a sewing workshop in a penal colony. Remember, Whelan was arrested in 2018 and later convicted of espionage, but the U.S. considers him wrongfully detained. And out of France, the government is set to ban smoking at beaches, parks, and forests, public land at least. It's part of a push to try to prevent the 75,000 avoidable deaths caused by tobacco products every year in France. Lawmakers there are also planning to ban disposable e-cigs as well. Also overseas, British gymnastic coaches are now banned from weighing younger athletes, with new policies getting put into place now after a bombshell review into British gymnastics, which found a culture of abuse inside the organization. More than 25% of people reported what they call excessive weight management. Some saying, you see it here, they took unhealthy steps to describe keeping their weight down to try to satisfy the demands of their coaches, leading to, in some cases, eating disorders and mental health issues. Molly Hunter has more.
Yeah, Hallie, this is a big deal. This announcement was made by British Gymnastics. It's the governing body of the sport over here in the UK. But we know body shaming certainly not specific to this country, certainly not specific to gymnastics. So British Gymnastics made the announcement. They basically announced 3 new safeguarding policies that were introduced today. They say more will come over the next year. The first one, this is the rule getting the most attention today about weighing gymnasts. So I'm just going to read exactly what they say. Their language is very specific. They say weighing of gymnasts must always be their choice and must only be undertaken by qualified sports science or medical practitioners with the gymnast's optimal long-term development in mind and with clear scientifically valid rationale. Now, only gymnasts over the age of 10 can be weighed in a gymnastics setting, and weight data must always be combined with another measure. Coaches must not weigh gymnasts. How you can hear in that language, it really gives agency. It gives consent to the athletes, even if they're very young. Now, 2 more rules that were announced today, policies, I should say. One about hydration. Gymnasts must be provided with opportunities to drink regularly throughout a gymnastics session, and they should also be allowed to go to the bathroom. The fact that that even has to be said, Hallie, should say something about where at least some athletes thought the state of this sport was. And finally, academic education, club training and school cannot conflict, particularly for those kids under 12, and for those over 12, they can only miss school for training under exceptional circumstances that doesn't impact their academic career. Now, this all came after something called the White Report. It rocked gymnastics in this country. It was based on more than 400 complaints. It was published last year. It was a massive independent investigation that basically uncovered that there was shaming around weight. They talk about how some gymnasts even had their bags searched for food for weight management. Now, today in the announcement, British Gymnastics also said, Hallie, quote, inappropriate or excessive weighing of gymnasts is an example of poor practice, which may be on the fringe of abuse and if/or repeated could amount to abuse. Now, British Gymnastics clearly taking this very seriously, I should say. They've scheduled webcasts for this week and next week. They said there will be in-person events next year to answer questions and so that clubs can start implementing this. But really important to say, this is not just gymnastics. This is not just this country. This is really worldwide. Actually, here in London, just because I am here, this came up in the news again in a different sport. In soccer, the Chelsea women's soccer coach, Emma Hayes, she's actually soon to be the new U.S. women's national coach. She was responding, Hallie, to one of her players talking about body shaming. And she said, "I do not believe in the women's game we should have weigh-ins or body composition tests. The media needs to be mindful of the insecurities that might be there. Body shaming is a real thing, and the players feel it." Really making a nod to the fact that we all have a role to play in this, but certainly not specific to gymnastics or soccer or to women's sports either, which I think is really important to say. Hallie?
That's a good point. Our thanks to Molly Hunter for that reporting from London. Coming up, could there be a fountain of pooch youth? What the FDA is now saying about a drug that could keep your pup alive longer. Next. So tonight's original now with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. And tonight, it's a new drug in the works that could keep your very good boy or girl, your favorite pup, alive longer. With the FDA this week essentially telling one company that they're on the right track toward getting the green light to sell that drug to the public. So, have scientists actually figured out the fountain of pooch youth? NBC's Valerie Castro has more.
Come on, Phil.
In a dog's world, the future is far less important than what's right under its nose. But more time with your pup, the latest goal from doggy pharma companies. Now that's intriguing for owners.
He's just an old man. He's an old soul. The more research that came out about it, I think I would be interested.
One company is making some headway. Loyal giving NBC News a letter from the FDA saying its drug meant to increase dogs' lifespans just met one of the many conditions needed on its way to market approval. Loyal's hopes that its shot every 3 to 6 months could slow the aging process in big dogs over 40 pounds that typically have shorter lifespans, giving you possibly an extra year of cuddles, fetch, and slobbery kisses.
It compensates for what we believe drives that big dog short lifespan post-maturity.
Celine Haliwa, founder and CEO of Loyal, says the drug lowers the production and release of proteins called growth factors to slow down aging, but they won't make your big dogs smaller.
They're still going to be big. We're not creating medium Danes or anything.
The road to getting the drugs into paws across the country is a long one. Loyal still needs to do more research, show its drug actually increases a dog's lifespan, and provide more safety and manufacturing data for the FDA to vet. The FDA declined to provide a statement on the drug, saying it couldn't comment on applications in progress. And Loyal's not alone. Other researchers are hot on the trail to sniff out their own version. The Dog Aging Project is looking into the drug rapamycin.
Rapamycin in the laboratory has been shown to increase healthy lifespan in mice and worms and flies. And we're interested in whether it can increase healthy lifespan in dogs.
Whether or whenever these drugs go to market, there'll be plenty of owners whose ears perk up at the idea.
I would consider, depending on, what kind of clinical trials have they done.
Others less sure about a first-of-its-kind medication.
You can't know if the dog would want to. I would feel uncomfortable about doing that.
One bioethicist echoing concerns, saying drugs like these are taking the eye off the ball.
If you think about golden retrievers, those dogs have lowered their lifespan over the past years because of breeding for particular traits. There's so much more that we could do to improve dogs' lives.
The desire to keep a dog alive longer mirrors goals we have for our own species, with researchers working on drugs that could extend human life expectancy by years or even decades.
If you ask me, do I want to live longer, I would say yes.
For now, the focus is on more tail wagging. Though it's up in the air when Tilly and Ozzy and Yeti's time will be up, eventually, all dogs go to heaven.
Valerie is joining us now. And to be clear, right, years and years of work that these companies have got to start doing before this is even a possibility for, your dog or my dog or somebody else's dog, right?
Or my parents' dog, exactly. You're not going to see this at your vet's office anytime soon. There are still a lot of regulatory hurdles that this will have to pass, a lot of clinical trials. There will need to be a thorough review by the FDA. But, Hallie, there is some hope that there could be a conditional approval by 2026.
Valerie Castro, thank you very much for that. Still to come here on the show, a lot more to get to, including Taylor Swift, queen of Spotify Wrapped. But she's not the only one on top. We're checking that list twice. So it is the most wonderful time of the year for people who listen to music. The day of the Spotify Wrapped drop, which I'm sure has entered your group chat with everybody telling on themselves about who they listen to the most. But you know what? Spotify doesn't care. They don't care who your number one was, because in the end, all the hype, any of it, it's all good for business. In just the last year, Spotify has gotten 118 million more listeners. And apparently, every single one of them listened to Taylor Swift 1 billion times. She is the global artist of the year. But she didn't have the most streamed song or the most streamed album in the country. That was Morgan Wallen with Bad Bunny, my number one, taking home most streamed album globally. I want to bring in Chloe Malas now. Chloe, super quick, who is your number one?
Oh, my goodness. Fleetwood Mac.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. Not what I expected.
Hold on. Taylor Swift is number 4 in my Wrapped, just so you know. So I am with it. I'm with the times. Right. I'm listening to Swift.
But I love it. You're an analog reporter in a digital world, girl. I'm here for it. We'll talk about that in a second. But what's so interesting to me, right? Everybody is having this conversation today. Like, it just seems like everybody is talking about Spotify Wrapped. And it is such an indicator of the way that Spotify, in so many ways, has changed the music business. It is, for today, them, too. Like, it's free advertising for them all day.
It is bringing in so much money for the music artists and for publishing. Back in the day when you would buy a CD for $20 and then maybe you might not like the full album, this has revolutionized the way that we listen to music and how artists make money. I just want to point out that in 2021, Spotify paid out more than any other service and set the record for the highest annual payment from any single retailer in the history of the music industry at $7 billion and over $3 billion to those who have the publishing rights. So Spotify is really good for artists. Artists, they want Spotify because it's making them tons of money.
So artists like Taylor Swift, right? I mean, she's making money in tons of ways anyway. She is, as we said, kind of queen of the Wrapped this year. Our team Slack is like full of that, right? Lots of Swifties on our team. We have lots of we do have lots of Bad Bunny lovers too, but it's not just her, right? She may have 26 billion streams, but there are so many other artists, at least a couple huge names, who also are getting a ton of attention on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do want to point out that, yes, this is the year of Taylor Swift, but we also have to say in terms of global streams, yes, Taylor was at 26.1 billion, but you have Miley Cyrus's Flowers at 1.6 billion. Yeah. And then, like you said, Bad Bunny's Un Verano Sin at 4.5 billion. So, I mean, obviously there's a big jump in the numbers here. There's several billion between Taylor, Miley, and then Bad Bunny. But, I do want to point out, though, this is a very significant moment for Taylor Swift to dethrone this pop powerhouse who is Bad Bunny, who has held this coveted title for 3 years in a row since 2020. So, we're all saying it. She's good for the music industry, she's good for the movies, and she's good for the NFL. I mean, what can Taylor Swift not do? And she's raking in the cash.
Wrapped, apparently, but that maybe next year she'll go
She
for
has
that,
to
Chloe.
get above Sting as well. I didn't even tell you about Sting. We'll talk about that later.
Obsessed. I need to see yours, and I want to thank the producers who very vulnerably shared their Wrapped we've been showing to you in that graphic. It is so fun, Chloe, because it's not just a culture story. It is like a legit business story, too. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
That does it for us this hour. We've got more coverage picking up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.